I'm excited. I'm honored to get to share the message with you all today. We are out of that book of Ephesians, but I need to back you up just a second. There was a morning that I'll never forget. My mother, she woke me up so much earlier than I had anticipated. She said, Mikey, Denise, only my mother's allowed to call me Mikey, okay? That goes for you all too, okay? My mom calls me Mikey. Mikey, your coach called. He said, Johnny or Jimmy, he's sick, and if you want to wrestle today, you can have the spot. You can go to the tournament and fill in. Half awake, I wasn't really sure exactly what to say or how to respond. I mean, you can imagine a 14, 15-year-old boy waking up in the middle of the night. I had just gone to bed 30 minutes earlier, probably. And you see, just a week or so before that, Jim had beaten me in a wrestle-off. I had held down the 152 varsity spot on my little Southwest Kansas conjoined team for a while, and my heart was a little bit broken that he beat me. I felt like it was out of spite. And while neither of us really considered this, the winner would get to represent our team at the league tournament very soon. Neither of us really thought about this either. The winner would also have to face the three-time 3-2-1 A-State champion who was undefeated that season. He also had a cute sister that was on the cheer squad, I'm just saying. So I had mixed feelings, to say the least, about this situation. I was disappointed that I had lost my spot. I was kind of glad I didn't have to face the monster of a man-child, and honestly, I had come to a point of peace about it all. But there I was. What was I going to do? It's 3:30 or something in the morning, and do I need to go with the team? Do I realize I'm probably facing another loss? What happened to Jim? Was he really sick? And y'all know his name isn't Jim, right? We're protecting identities here today. In the middle of the night, if I said yes, I'd have to weigh in, suit up in my singlet, and prepare for the battle. And it really is a battle. The image of suiting up is the one I want you to hold on to as we explore our scripture today. The emotion that Paul is striving to evoke in Ephesians here, specifically Ephesians 6:11, put on the whole armor of God. And this is a powerful analogy of how we are to prepare for life every day, I believe. It's the same feeling I get when I listen to songs like Whitesnake's Here I Go Again, yeah? Here I go again on my own, yeah? Going down the only road I've ever known. Thank you for clapping along. The thing is, when I get up most days, I don't know about you, but the song, if there was one to annotate the way I feel when I wake up, it's more like, oh, when I wake up, well, I know it's gonna be another awfully boring day. Okay, a little dramatic, but that's how most of us live, right? It's a little bit on autopilot, a little bit on unpreparedness. It's a little bit, I don't know. But what brings us here today in church, what brings us here in the light of Jesus is something that I think we all desire deep down, and that's to live for Jesus' purpose in our lives. I think there's that desire to get off autopilot and to live a little more intentionally. So I have to ask, and I ask myself this often too. I get off track just as easily, if not more so. What would it look like if I woke up every morning and decided to finish well? Finish the day well. How much better would I sleep, knowing that I did everything I could to fulfill my spiritual calling for the day? That's what the athlete does in the locker room as he prepares to take the field. That's what the musician does in the green room as she reviews her lyrics before she steps onto the stage. It's the image of the battle that Paul calls us to win the war and put on the full armor of God with divine determination. I love that alliteration, divine determination. I came up with it. I try to be humble. I'm not going to be today. At least on that. The theme of our message series is just that, divine determination. And you got a glimpse of that in our children's moment. But we need to be really specific here on the divine determination we're talking about, because there's 4 decisions that we're going to take in this series, today being one of them, in the following 3 weeks, to join in the divine determination. This is not our divine determination. We're not divine. We're created in the image of the divine, but this is Jesus' determination in our life to see us succeed. And I truly believe at the end of our lives, just as Jesus told in the parable of Matthew 25:21, he wants to say to each and every one of us, "Well done, good and faithful servant. Come and share your master's happiness." Don't you want to hear those words? Y'all remember Paul? We've been talking about him all summer with our message series and his letters and stuff, and I thought, finally, a new message series, we're going to be done with Paul. Nope, we got to talk about him some more. Paul is from the elite class. Did you know that? He was from an affluent situation. He went to the Harvard of the day. That's how well educated he was. And you see, he lived with his own determination rather than the determination of the divine. And when we first hear about him in Acts, we see a picture of a man so self-righteous that he doesn't even throw stones at the one whom he is persecuting. Acts 7 verse 58. Meanwhile, the witnesses laid their coats at the feet of the young man named Saul. Okay, Saul, Paul, same guy, right? He didn't just go to the execution, he hosted it. He hosted an execution, okay? He is the bully. He is the coach's bully, right? He is the coach to the bully. All right, here, I've been watching Cobra Kai on Netflix. So he's the John Kreese to your Johnny Lawrence, all right? That's how bad he is. Oh, man. So what does God do with our Paul, our Saul here? He literally knocks him off his high horse and gives him another chance. Acts 9, verse 3 and 4. Suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him. He fell to the ground and heard a voice. If you read on, you'll know that voice is the voice of Jesus. Even after all these horrible things that Saul had done, Jesus was determined to use him. And the same goes for us. Our Heavenly Father is so determined to see us succeed, to live into our calling, that no matter how many times we fail, intentionally or unintentionally, no matter how bad we've been, no matter what, we have access to Him and His divine determination in our lives. I want to take you back to that night. I was in my bed. I wasn't laying down anymore. I was sitting up, wide awake. Clarity comes pretty quick when you're getting ready for battle. And I thought about Jimmy. You know, I knew Jimmy was going to pull this kind of a thing. He always chickened out. I'm still not convinced he was ever sick. I never saw the barf bag or anything. Like, there's no evidence that Jimmy got sick. I don't think Jimmy thought this through, what it would mean to take up this mantle. He challenged me, and now he's too scared to follow through, but there I am laying in bed just hours away from it. Am I too scared to show up myself? The coach, I don't remember what he said, but I remember an apologetic tone in his voice. It wasn't a, come on, done. I mean, I got plenty of that. This was, I'm sorry I have to do this to you. I also remember meeting this kid from Cimarron, Kansas. Yes, he had a cute sister. I told you about that. But he also pinned me in the first minute, the last time I faced him just a few weeks before. Could I face that embarrassment again? Would that actually be supporting my team at all? Why not just give them the bye? How could I possibly succeed? I believe this is often how we feel when we look down the road to our spiritual calling. How could I ever do that? Every day, Jesus asks us to step into our unique individual callings, and I can't help but ask, how would your life look if you were actually living into that purpose? What difference would it make in spite of the fear? How much better would it be if we just were in the practice of suiting up every day, preparing for the storms ahead, whether we're woken up by our mother, ready for the battle or not? What would it look like if we had the divine determination to be a finisher? What would it look like if we had the divine determination to be a finisher? That's the first of our 4 decisions we're going to make this month. And one of the sources of inspiration for me on being a finisher, of completing the task, not only comes from the Bible, but from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's a simple habit, and the first time I was exposed to this habit was in the 6th grade in Mr. Blackburn's class, in an updated version for teens by Sean Covey, one of his sons. And it was just this: begin with the end in mind. So before we'd begin the science lesson, Mr. Blackburn would read an excerpt, and when he introduced this habit, I'll summarize the story that went along with it. I thought this was so powerful. This really meant a lot to me. He described a scrawny young boy, probably not unlike myself, who wanted to be captain of the wrestling team someday. Cool, right? Well, how do you get from point A to point B? Well, he had to, I'll juxtapose his options, right? He could choose to picture in his mind where he wanted to be, hold on to that image, which would lead him to work out hard, watch what he ate, and so on and so on and so on, you know? Or he could do what I feel a lot of people in the world do and make excuses or try to justify not having to work hard because it's genetics or something like that, right? That's what we do. We slough it off. It's either too big of an obstacle or we put the work in. We get determined. And so this kid, he decided to take action on this dream. I don't know that it was a heavenly dream or anything like that, but it took years. And I'm aware, teenagers, for those of you that are here, years feels like decades when you're a teenager. That's what it feels like. It took years, but in time, this featherweight freshman grew a foot taller, he put on some muscle, and not only did he become captain of the wrestling team, he became captain of the track team with all sorts of integrity and some real class. This young man took up a vision, and we see how important that vision became to him living out the life that he wanted to live. Now, I want you to imagine how much more significant is your spiritual calling than that of athletics. Love athletics. How much more important is your faith to have a vision? Solomon describes how important vision is in Proverbs 29:18. Where there is no vision, the people perish. We need a vision, a mental picture of where we're headed in life. The end needs to be in mind, especially in our faith. We can't just wish to win the race, show up. Can you imagine if I showed up to my next triathlon in this getup? All right, not that I'm winning any races, but I'm clearly not even ready. I haven't prepared in any way, shape, or form. If we want to win the race, if we want to fulfill our calling, we need to suit up correctly. At least start there. If we want to hear those words, how about this? We talk about our mission statement a lot. If we want to see a spiritual legacy in the next generation of Christ followers, maybe we need to define what that actually looks like with some hard parameters. I think our spiritual goals, those are harder to set physical, hard parameters around. And because that's hard, we don't set it. I think it's easier to schedule running a marathon than it is to schedule how we're going to leave a legacy for the next generation of Christ followers. But I think the latter is so much more important. Okay, I think in our faith, it's like walking a mile. And we only count a mile when we reach step 1600, all right? If you get your Fitbit out, it's only going to say you walked a mile when it feels like you've hit step 1600. But in our faith, as we're walking along, this is what we do. We look down and we just painstakingly take a step. And then there's a crack there. I'm going to take a step here. And then we take the next step. And then we're... if I was heading over there, we're over by the piano, and it's like, wait, what? How did this happen? How did I get here? And then we're on step 20 and we wonder, what's going on? And we still got how many hundreds of steps ahead of us? Sometimes I think it's the posture we take. If we were to keep our eyes fixed on our goal with the end in mind, we'd get there so much faster. And we'd realize that the effort it takes to take one step is no different than the effort it takes to go from step 1,599 to step 1,600. It's no different than the effort that it takes to go from step 499 to 500. Each step has its own unique set of effort that's about the same. But we get discouraged because we haven't hit the mile yet, right? In our spiritual journey, we walk a lot, but let's keep this walking a mile analogy. But in our spiritual journey, we all end up somewhere, right? But do we end up there on purpose? That's kind of a variation of Pastor Craig Rochelle's quote from one of his first books, Chauson. It says, "Everyone ends up somewhere. Few people end up somewhere on purpose." And that's hard. It's hard. It's hard. It doesn't happen overnight. And I think of our Paul analogy here, looking at his life, his examination. We look back, and in Acts 9, it looks like in 3 days, he was blinded, and in 3 days he goes from persecutor to preacher. That's a program I want to sign up for. Anybody else going with me? No. It isn't until Acts 13 that we see any kind of a glimpse of this Saul to Paul true transformation. And to put that in perspective, that's months or even a couple of years. The one who wrote all of these amazing letters of encouragement, it took daily divine determination. It took daily suiting up, getting ready for what he had to unlearn and learn. And he didn't stop there. He pursued Jesus his whole life through. In one of his final notes to his mentor or his mentee, Timothy, he writes, "I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith." He knew where his running shoes were, and he knew where to grab them. Keeping faith on any given day is good, but if we keep the spiritual calling God has for us in mind every day, those weeks that we get down, well, they get a little bit easier. And the days turn into weeks, and the weeks turn into months, and next thing you know, we're in a whole new spiritual depth that we never thought possible, but it's taken one step at a time. It's by putting the armor on every day. I'd love to tell you that I showed up to that tournament. I did show up to the tournament, okay? I went. I actually did. I went to the tournament. And I'd love to tell you, I got out there and there was this cool montage of back and forth, and I beat him, and then I got to kiss his sister. And no, that didn't happen. I lost. Not as bad as previously. I still ended up in 4th out of 4. But there on the podium, because 4th place does get to stand at the podium, I gained something so much more valuable than a gold medal or a blue ribbon or any kind of accolade that I thought I could have gained. You see, in the middle of the night, with the encouragement of my parents and my coach, and can I take a quick aside there? Sometimes when we talk about spiritual vision, we think we're the one who has to be there and at the top. Sometimes the spiritual vision for a life is encouraging others and equipping others. And that's what happened. Being equipped by parents and a coach, I remembered the type of person that I want to be. One filled with integrity, one that doesn't back down from a challenge, and one that could be trusted by his teammates to show up. Kind of a blurry vision of what you see before you today, but those are still values I want to hold that I think are a part of my greater spiritual calling. And that's the thing. If we're going to decide to live with divine determination, to be a finisher, then we've got to realize we're going to lose by the world's standards often. But we'll win every time in the kingdom. And that's one thing I want you to think about. Maybe consider this week journaling or writing down what that vision might look like for you in your life. It's okay if it's bad. Just put something down, something to aim for. Because as you go along, you're going to course correct, and it'll get more and more precise. So I invite you to develop this vision, but I have to warn you. I've tried to keep this very positive and pointed, and here's where we should go, but there are consequences to not doing this. Paul warns us of those in Ephesians 6:12. He says, and Scott read this very well, but I'm going to put some doom and gloom on it, okay? He says, our struggle is not against blood and flesh, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers of this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. That's some pretty serious stuff. And did you know, just think about this, your heart is one of those heavenly places. I really believe that. And if the enemy can distract you by saying, you don't need to suit up today, you're going to be so much easier of a target. You're going to wake up and think, I can just lay in bed. Rather than with the preparedness I think Jesus calls us to. I know it seems silly. I'm going to suit up for battle, but we got to get obsessive about this. That's the difference. I think Jesus will call us home, but I think we sometimes forget that we can live lives that we're proud of as well, that honor God, and we can believe are worthy of that. Well done, good and faithful servant. I want to hear that. And that begins today by tapping into the power of the divine to be a finisher. Jesus is for you. He doesn't lead with the threat. He doesn't lead with the doom and gloom. He leads with the encouragement. And Paul echoes that sentiment in the most joyful New Testament book next to the Gospels in Philippians 1:6. He says, I am confident of this, that the one who began a good work in you will continue to complete it until the day of Jesus Christ. We're going to mess up. We're not going to get it exactly right. But Jesus is determined to see you finish. And I think when we join him in that, we can meet him at the finish line in an incredible, well-done way. So, I invite you, determined to be a finisher. And with that, I invite you to pray. Will you pray with me? Father in heaven, we thank you for this day, a chance to reflect, a chance to worship, and a chance to experience your love. I pray that everyone gathered here now in this moment would just have an opportunity to see the love and the desire you have for them. Jesus, let them see that you recognize the struggle, that you recognize the hardships, the hang-ups, and maybe not for you, but for the brokenness of the world. Give us the burden that we need to remind us to suit up. Because Jesus, you have made us in a way so that we can be a part of the solution. And even if we begin to wonder, Jesus, you are right there for us and with us. And for that, we are so, so grateful. So God, we just ask for your continued love and support, and we ask for the awareness of that. And it's in your holy and precious name that we pray. Amen.